The fire actually happened on the 17th of January 2010. It was a very, very snowy day outside. The sun was obviously low in the sky that day, as it is that time of year. We had gone out shopping for the day to Guildford, so weren't at home. And at about 1 o'clock, the fire started in my downstairs office in our house, and was actually noticed by our neighbour, who phoned the fire brigade about 45 minutes later. By the time they arrived, apparently the fire had already completely demolished the study and had gone through the ceiling up into the first floor, and had gone right across all the bedrooms in the first floor and through into the roof. And I think we had five fire engines there trying to put the fire out. And I think it did take a number of hours, although of course I wasn't there until much later. Sadly, we weren't contacted. They tried to contact us, but by pure fluke that day I actually left my mobile phone at home, so I wasn't contactable. So we had no idea about the fire until we physically got home at about 5 o'clock that evening.
Did you have any idea what caused it when you arrived?
We had absolutely no idea what had caused it at all. We assumed it was an electrical fault. And in fact it was only once an investigation had been done that we found out that it was actually caused by a magnifying glass that was sitting in a pen pot on my study desk in a south facing window.
And what was your reaction when you found out this?
Shocked. Couldn't believe that an item like that could cause such devastation. Had never even thought for 1 minute that could possibly happen, particularly in January. But it did, and it was the most devastating thing that could have possibly occurred. And in fact, to be honest, it was such a shock. I don't actually remember an awful lot about the first few moments I got home. I know a friend of mine was waiting for me. I don't even remember seeing her. I remember a fire engine in my driveway, and all I remember is a very dark house, dripping with water, and the stench of the fire, the smell of it was horrendous.
And after that moment, how did it impact on your life?
It impacted on our lives as a family in a lot of ways, actually. I mean, we lost an awful lot of keepsakes, of course. In those days, I mean, we're talking 2010, and even then I wasn't brilliant at myself at photographs going on the computer, but of course we've taken a lot of pictures of our children from when they were tiny, and done the normal thing of taking a picture with a camera and going to Boots to have them, developed, and we lost all of those photographs. So we lost an awful lot of pictures of the family. Other important documents that we lost as well, certificates from schooling and things like that. My daughter lost all her artwork for her GCSE exam, which unfortunately had to be redone. And apart from anything else, I lost my office, and I worked from home, and so my business was put on hold for about 3 months, which affected my salary for that year, and so very stressful.
And after the incident, how long until you were back into your house?
We, obviously that night, the first night it happened, we had to stay with my parents for a couple of nights, and I'm just trying to remember, I think we eventually got back into the house in November. So we're actually out of the house for 11 months, or certainly 10 months.
Did that surprise you, how long it took to get back into it?
It did. The house had to be rebuilt, literally not from scratch, because obviously the foundations were there, but they had to do an awful lot of rejigging. And they didn't actually physically start the work on the property until June. So it took 6 months from the time of the fire to the builders actually arriving and starting the work. And that was due to insurance issues, trying to get plans organised, talking to the council. There were all sorts of things that had to go on. And so I couldn't believe that it took 6 months for the actual rebuild to start.
You must be really grateful that you had insurance and that you weren't in the property at the time when this happened.
Yes. Actually, my contents insurance was actually quite low. It was lower than it should have been. So we were just incredibly lucky that at that time there was a recession on, and there were an awful lot of deals to be had. Because when you're trying to refit a 5-bedroom property, there's an awful lot of things to purchase, and people might think it sounds exciting, but it's not actually. It's quite hard work. So I would suggest that anyone make sure that their content insurance is to the fullest it can be. And buildings insurance, obviously, we did have, but that's vital. Without that, we would have been in real serious trouble without a property.
And you did, I believe, have smoke alarms installed in the
Yeah,
property.
we did have smoke alarms, so we'd done all that. There was one room in the house which was a converted garage, which had become a family room that had a fire door on it. And in fact, that room was the only room where the furniture was savable. And we did keep that furniture, but that was really the only furniture we were able to keep. And even with a fire door, there was still smoke damage in there too.
Do you think, in hindsight, is there anything you could have done to have prevented this, or was it one of those unusual types of fires that you just wish you knew more about at the time?
Yes, I mean, obviously now I wouldn't have put a magnifying glass in a pen pot in a south-facing window. So yes, I've learnt a lot about that, and I also learnt a lot after our fire from the fire brigade about other glass objects and how they can cause fires, including crystals that people hang in their windows, which are lethal apparently. Magnifying glasses, obviously we know about, shaving mirrors as well. Anything that reflects the sun, any type of mirror or glass is potentially very, very dangerous. So I've now learnt that. So of course I now know what not to do, but a lot of people are not aware of these things. And I think we always think it's never going to happen to us. I certainly never thought it would happen to me, but it did.
So is there any advice that you'd like to give to people watching this video?
My advice would be definitely to get proper insurance, full contents insurance and full household insurance, building insurance, and make sure when you do your contents insurance that you really do think about what is in your property. Go through an inventory if necessary, because you'll be surprised how much more cover you need actually when you do that. Make sure that you have smoke alarms in your house, make sure if you can that you have fire doors where possible, and make sure that you have flame retardant furniture. And just do everything you can to not place certain objects in certain places so that the sun can't penetrate through windows and cause the devastation that it caused for us.
How did the fire impact on you and your family personally?
I think it was probably the most stressful situation we'd ever been through as a family. My daughter's schooling was affected because she was doing her GCSE exams and an awful lot of her work was gone, obviously. And I just think that people don't perhaps understand that it's not just the fire itself in the first few days, weeks, it's the impact that comes later on and the stress that it creates, and the phone calls that have to be made are just unbelievable. The lists of people that you have to contact when this sort of thing happens, and everyone from telephone, obviously you have to ring them, you have to ring the council, you have to ring various insurance companies, mortgage companies. I mean, there is a very long list of phone calls that have to be done. And living in a hotel, which we did for a few weeks, might sound rather lovely, but in fact it isn't when you've got no clothing, you have to get your children to school, you've got no a way of creating packed lunches for them, you have to get friends involved. So it's a very, very stressful time.